In love. Previous videos I spoke about the connection between thoughts, words, and deeds. And sometimes people use lyrics of songs to inspire them to do all sorts of deeds. So today I thought I would discuss the lyrics to Green Day's Paranoia. So I'm going to share it with you. You can find it on YouTube. I had visions, I was in them. I was looking into the mirror to see a little bit clearer the rottenness and evil in me. Fingertips have memories. Oh, there he goes again. No, staying straight. I can't forget the curves of your body, and when I feel a bit naughty, I run it up the flagpole and see who still looks, but no one ever does. I'm not sick, but I'm not well. I'm so hot because I'm in hell. Been around the world and found that only stupid people are breeding. Cretins cloning and feeding, and I don't even own a TV. Put me in the hospital for nerves, and then they had to commit me. She told them, oh, I was crazy. They cut off my legs, now I'm an amputee. God damn you. I'm not sick, but I'm not well. I'm so hot because I'm in hell. I'm not sick, but I'm not well. And it's a sin to live so well. I want to publish scenes and rage against machines. I want to pierce my tongue, and it doesn't hurt, it feels fine. It could be you're so blind. I'd love to turn off time and kill my mind. You kill my mind. Ah, paranoia, paranoia. Everybody's coming to get me. Just say you never met me. I'm running underground with the moles, digging holes. Hear the voices in my head. I swear to God, it sounds like they're snoring. But if you're poor and you're boring, the agony and the irony, they're killing me well. I'm not sick, but I'm not well. I'm so hot because I'm in hell. I'm not sick, but I'm not well, and I'm so swell to live this well. I don't know. I was trying to figure out what paranoia is, and this helped me. In everyday language, the term paranoia refers to someone who feels excessively suspicious without justification, and that others are plotting against him. They read far too much into everything people say and are quick to criticize, but they are not open to criticism themselves. The term mountains out of molehills describe paranoid individuals. Research indicates that many of us, perhaps 15 to 30%, will regularly experience suspicious thoughts. For example, about 42% of college students reported at least once a week others were spreading negative comments about them. The overall emotional state of a person who is paranoid is a negative one. Depressed mood, anxiety, and lowered self-esteem. Paranoia is disorder of mind, not a flaw of character. Paranoid individuals tend to have false ideas about the world and people. So there are 8 biases, all right? Confirmation bias is the first one. A suspicious person is a person who has something in his mind and searches intensely for confirmation for his anticipation. He will pay no attention to rational arguments except to find in them some aspect or feature that confirms his original view. Attention bias. The instrument for an individual confirmation bias is attention. His attention is intense and exceedingly narrow in focus. For example, a person with low self-esteem is highly sensitive to other people ignoring them. They constantly monitor for signs that people might not like them. Third, disorder of reasoning. Once a suspicious person accepts a belief based on some evidence, he is reluctant to give it up. When hearing new evidence, he is less likely to revise his original judgment about the possibility of alternative explanations. 4. Distorted reality. The paranoid person imposes a biased view on an actual world. Their thought processes go from belief to evidence. A paranoid person generally listens and watches only for specific clues that interest him, which tie into suspicious beliefs. For instance, in a conversation with a co-worker, he overlooks nuances and misses the true intent as he fails to read between the lines, instead focusing on what he wants to say, that everybody's out to get him or her. 5. Persecutory delusion. They are blaming individuals and they explain life events by blaming others. For example, they explain negative events, such as losing a job, by attributing them to the malicious intentions of others, rather than worrying about whether they are inadequate in some way. So rather than finding the faults in themselves and their actions, their decision making, they always look for the reason for anything going wrong outside of themselves. The flip side of persecutory delusion is grandiosity, which serves to defend against anxieties and vulnerabilities. In an attempt to cope with low self-esteem and the fear that no one loves them, they convince themselves that everybody loves them. Everybody's their friend. Paranoid projection. Projection is a substitution of an external threat or tension for an internal one that one's self denies. For example, I hate him becomes he hates me. Rather than to admit that you don't like someone, you project. You say they don't like me. This mental operation is central to paranoid thought. For example, a paranoid person who has made a small mistake on the job will search for clues of disapproval in his boss's behavior. It happened because of someone else. They don't take responsibility for their actions. When he finds that signs, the biased anticipation becomes a conviction of disapproval. 7. Overvalued ideas. An overvalued idea is a simple idea that resembles a delusion and often guides specific behavior. An example is knocking on wood to protect yourself against misfortune. Many people endorse the 10-second rule that says you can eat food that has fallen on the ground only if you pick it up immediately. One aspect of superstition is the idea of magical thinking, that you have control over the world. Many hotels don't have a 13th floor. But what would happen to a guest on the 13th floor that could not occur on the 14th floor? So this magical thinking is, if something happens, it's because somebody's out there to get you. And that they see a reason in everything. And a lot of religious people also, they look for coincidences in everything that happens. And that lowers your anxiety because, oh look, this and this happened, therefore there's some rule in the universe. 8. Erroneous sense-making. The suspicious person can absolutely right in his perception, and at the same time absolutely wrong in his judgment. Making sense is a deep human motivation. It's not the same as being correct. Michael Gazzaniga, in 2008, argues that the pressure to justify one's actions reflects the operation of an interpretive system in the left hemisphere analytical brain. The interpreter, the I, is driven to generate explanations and hypotheses regardless of circumstances. In other words, the brain only perceives what it wishes to. As Mark Twain remarked, what gets us in trouble is not what we don't know, it's what we know for sure that just ain't so. Let's repeat this. What gets us in trouble is not what we don't know, it's what we know for sure that just ain't so. So we try to explain things. We try to give explanations. So how do we get out of paranoia? I don't know. How do you deal with people that think you're out there to harm them? I don't know. How do you deal with people who don't trust you? I don't know. But I think the paranoid thought has to do with violent behavior. People that harm other people a lot of times have this idea in their brain that because they're not able to differentiate between the other person and them, some sort of developmental problem. They think the other person is there to harm them. That all the person does is just sit there and try to figure out, what can I do to harm this person? And if you say something to them and you say, hey, would you like to come over? Would you like to come for dinner? Would you like to meet? They say to you something like, Why do you try to manipulate me again? Why do you don't let me have, why does it bother you that I'm having fun doing other things? Or everything is completely misinterpreted. My experiences with paranoid individuals, especially one of them, was that it could be fine, they're taking their medication, then they snap, and they all of a sudden you get all these tons of communication. They'll just write you lots and lots of messages blaming you for things. So it's very important, because a lot of times we think that what somebody says to us is a judgment about us. But it's very important not to take anything personally, because you have to realize that what people say is what people say. And the more we are able to differentiate between us and the other person, the healthier it is to realize that what a person says to you comes out of their own, what's going on in their brain, and has nothing to do with intentions. It's not like this person is sitting and plotting, how can I harm this person? This really helped me, for instance, when I had a coworker saying to me like mocking comments. Whether it was my dog, how can people own dogs, they're dirty and disgusting, thinking it's a comment about me being dirty or disgusting, but realizing that it's that person, me being stupid to own dogs. And then I realized it's her thoughts, nothing to do with what I do. She doesn't sit there and think, how can I harm her? She's just saying what she thinks. A lot of people say what they think without any sort of intention. I want to close with another lyrics. Before I do so, I welcome you to make any comments. Do you have experiences with people that are paranoid in some way? Do you have family members or co-workers that attribute to you all sorts of evil deeds, think that you are there to harm them, and when you send an invitation or make a comment, they twist it all around and make it like trying to harm them? Do people sometimes close to you, family members, I don't know, neighbors, attribute to you intentions to harm them? If you do, please comment, how do you deal with that? Thank you. So I want to read something. When I had difficult times, I remember what saved me are words of a song. And one of my favorite albums is Paul Simon's Still Crazy After All These Years. Because we're all crazy in some way. And I think it's so sad that people use crazy as a derogatory comment to say to someone, you're crazy. What it means is, I don't understand you actually. When somebody says to you, you're nuts, you're crazy, you're cuckoo-luckoo, it means I don't understand you. And so we're so quick to say this person is crazy. But what is more intelligent is to say, this person has behaviors which I do not understand and I cannot relate to, which is fine. I cannot relate to people that are violent and intentionally harm other people. To call them crazy, I wouldn't, but I would say they have some sort of a process in their mind that has caused them to not feel empathy towards other people. I will try to explain it scientifically. I will try to think logically. That makes me feel safer to know that there is some explanation. To just say to somebody you're crazy doesn't make sense to me. So what really comforted me, Paul Simon, I love Paul Simon's words. I think he's extremely talented. I saw him in concert and I think he's just one of those artists that just never grows old. Leonard Cohen is another one that I saw just shortly before he died. Just like I would say he was like a teenager. He was just so full of energy and creativity. And so Paul Simon, My Little Town, I'd like to share the lyrics to that. And I'll explain why this is, for me, a contrast to the other lyrics. In my little town, I grew up believing God keeps his eyes on us all. And he used to lean upon me as I pledged allegiance to the wall. Lord, I recall my little town, coming home after school, riding my bike past the gates of the factories, my mom doing the laundry, hanging out shirts in the dirty breeze. And after it rains, there's a rainbow, and all of the colors are black. It's not that the colors aren't there, it's just imagination they lack. Everything's the same back in my little town. In my little town, I never meant nothing. I was just my father's son, saving my money, dreaming of glory, twitching like a finger on a trigger of a gun. Nothing but the dead and dying back in my little town. This is like a process. This is like a process of a person growing up in a little town, feeling protected. E. Cummings has some really good poems about that, which I will share in the future, but in this case not. So when you grow up in a little town, you're protected, you have a little world, but then you go out, and I like when he says, dreaming of glory, twitching like a finger on the trigger of a gun. So he has all this destructive potential. But somehow, if you can go back to remembering the belief that God keeps his eyes on us all, and how this personal relationship he had, he said he used to lean upon me, meaning God used to lean upon him, and he pledged allegiance to the wall. This days of innocence when he had faith and belief in country and glory and God. I think it's beautiful, because when you feel like the whole world is against you, that you have something to fall back on. I don't want to make this too much too loaded. I don't want to too many lyrics, but maybe we should mention Still Crazy After All These Years. I'm not the kind of man who tends to socialize. I seem to lean on old familiar ways, and I ain't no fool for love songs that whisper in my ears, still crazy after all these years. Now I sit by my window and watch the cars. I fear I'll do some damage one fine day, but I would not be convicted by a jury of my peers. Still crazy after all these years. To admit this craziness that is inside all of us is part of being sane, part of the healing process. To admit that no one is perfect, that everyone has a little bit of madness. A neighbor of mine, very good one. I have also good neighbors who adopted a dog that has some handicap. Met me on the street one morning as we were walking the dogs, and he said, "You know what? Everybody's a little bit crazy." I felt so good about that, because sometimes you feel like you're all alone with your madness. We're all crazy in some ways. So the difference is, are we aware of it? Do we accept it? Do we embrace our madness and take responsibility for it? Or do we project it onto other people, as the way the paranoid people do, and give other people responsibility for our deeds, our thoughts, our words? People who tend to lie, they don't take responsibility. They make up a world, and then they say, they did it, she did it, I didn't do it, she did it, I didn't do those things, she did it. And they'll say it, and they repeat those lies, and that becomes the reality, and they wish other people will believe it. So we want to be going towards sanity, or a world with more harmony, more peace, more love and light. Then we need to face our little madness, a little craziness, and fight those tendency to project our madness onto other people. and take and embrace the madness as you would a small little child and say, yes, a little bit crazy, but you know what? That's okay because I'm dealing with it and I'm taking responsibility, and I apologize when I need to apologize, and I accept that sometimes I need to be a little bit cuckoo. I have my cuckoo days, and that's okay because the world is not black and white, as Paul Simon says in his song "My Little Town." It's not just black and white. The world has all sorts of colors, and that's the healthy person sees all the colors and accepts them and embraces them and does a little bit less judging, and yet holding on to the sanity, holding on to the harmony. Peace, light, and love. Have a wonderful weekend.